Hello everyone, this is a quick tutorial on inverting color negatives in the free and open source software Darktable. In this case, I'm on version 5.2.0, which is the latest, and I'll be doing this on Windows, but the same holds for macOS and Linux. To start out, you're going to get a window like this, as this is a fresh install. To add images to your library to edit, you go over here to Import, click Add to Library. You will need to add a place. This is akin to a folder in Lightroom. It'll open up and you can select wherever you'd like. Then down here in your folders view, this will show you all the subdirectories of your places you've added. In this case, I'm working on roll 46. This will automatically select new images not already in your library, and you just hit Add to Library. This will take a moment and import all of our images as well as generating a thumbnail for them. As a default, Darktable will rate everything 1 star. You can change that if you'd like. Otherwise, all your standard color values, ratings, sorting, metadata, tagging, all of that is just over here. Light table is akin to Lightroom's library view. To start off, you will want to have a reference image that has a sample of your light source with nothing in front of it to serve as a white balance point for all future images. I have this generic cutout bit of film negative here that has a bit of my light source in the border. You could take a profiling shot, whatever works for you. You double click your image to open up Darkroom, or you can just select it and click Darkroom to open up your Darkroom view. This is akin to the Develop module in Lightroom. First, you want to click this power button here to show only your active modules, and for working with color negatives, you want to disable everything but white balance, highlight reconstruction, and your orientation. If you want to edit your orientation, you can do it now or later or whenever the heck you would like. For negatives, you're going to want to click the white balance module. Click this little picker to get a sample of your white balance from the image, and then just select a bit of your select a bit of your light source. After that, I don't need this frame anymore as it's just for that. You can click History Stack, copy the history of this image, and then paste that over everything to copy the white balance and turning off modules that I did in this first frame. From there, this will work in the background. Pick a negative, any negative. In this case, I like this one of a couple carriers with some stuffed animals in them. You'll get a similar view here. You can go into the search bar, and the module we are looking for to work with negatives is Negadoctor. Search for it, turn it on. The default is to do a color invert with a very warm-toned film base. This is something, but we can do much better. This looks like a lot of sliders. It's not as bad as it is. First, you're going to want to pick this eyedropper and sample this on a portion of your film border. In this case, I used some Revlog effects film, so there's a bit of this blue pre-exposed section here. I just leave it out. Click the eyedropper again to put that away, and you see this has sampled our kind of orangey brown film border. This sets the daemon for your R, G, and B channels respectively, and it'll do a decent job. For Dmax, you want to set this over either your whole negative, but if there are any dust or scratches, you're going to want to select a smaller portion of your film without it. Say, this little train here looks to be the brightest part of the scene, so I'll pick over that. Scan exposure bias sets your daemon for the scan again. This is your black point. You can once again set over the whole negative, and Darktable will try to pick a reasonable base, but if you have a bit of film border, I like to set on this. For corrections, you want to do shadows color cast first. This is trying to set your shadows so that they are achromatic. Essentially, if I grabbed my color picker over here, sample on a bit of film border, you'll see that this has brought our RGB values close to 000. For highlight white balance, this is what you would think of as a white balance. You can I will typically set this by picking our color picker and then highlighting over the whole frame, or sampling on something in frame I know is a neutral tone and going from there. In this case, this little white cloth in the stroller, which gets us a bit of a warmer toned image. Print properties is the creative interpretation part of this module. This is trying to simulate what would happen if I printed this negative onto a bit of RA4 or black and white paper respectively. And your main controls here are going to be paper black. This is saying what part of the negative do you want to be pure black. Again, you can sample this over the whole image, but typically I'll sample over the border as that is what I want to be pure black. Or if I prefer, maybe I want this part of the stroller here to be pure black, I can sample over that and it'll bring everything down to compensate. Print exposure adjustment is setting the simulated exposure. This is going to try and set the overall brightness of your image as bright as it can without clipping any of your highlights. Generally, this will do a good job, but if you have dust, you'll once again want to set this manually, either using your histogram or just sampling over whatever you think the brightest part of your image is going to be. In this case, this is a dust-free negative, so it gets us the same results in either case. Paper grade is your contrast. As the tooltip says, it sets the virtual grade of your paper. Higher values are more contrasty, lower values are less contrasty. It's all about what you like for the scene. In this case, I like a little bit more contrast, a little bit more brightness, and I could consider this negative done here. I can then use this negative as a base point for all my other modules by going back to Lightroom, or our Light Table, clicking Selective Copy under our History stack. I'll select Negadoctor, select all of our frames that aren't the one we've just inverted, and paste it over everything. And this will get us a reasonably good, if sort of flat, inversion of everything. If you want to dig into a frame more, say this frame here is underexposed, and so there's not much detail here. Well, we base these Negadoctor settings off of a properly exposed negative. As this is underexposed, it will need a bit more care. I'll click on it, reset it, and go through the same process with this. Set our Dmax on that white thing in the background. Set our exposure bias along the border. We will set our shadows color cast and our highlight white balance. Set our paper black just to this. Set our print exposure adjustment there as a baseline, and we've already got a bit better of a result. I want a bit more detail here, so I will drop our gamma a little bit, increase our exposure, and then, well, this is really noisy, so let's add a denoise to this, and if I zoom in, you can see that removed a lot of our chroma noise, but will not get rid of too much of the film grain, as there's not really any avoiding that with a negative this noisy. You can do more work in Negadoctor, but for additional processing, say there's this kind of color cast in our shadows here and everything's a bit low contrast because we dropped our gamma, I'll click our color tab here and turn on color balance RGB. This gives you a lot of sliders, but this is akin to all of your highlight, shadow, saturation, and so on sliders in Lightroom. In this case, we're a bit low contrast. I'm going to add a little bit to there. The vibrance is fine. I don't feel we need to add color to our low colors, but I want the scene to be a little brighter. I'll add a little bit to our shadows, a little bit to our highlights, or you can do the whole... Well, I'll drop the brightness overall. This helps a little bit. How do I handle this color cast in the shadows? Well, you can then go to 4 ways, which is your selective color grading. You can mess with these sliders manually. What I prefer to do is select with our eyedropper tool, In this case, I'm working with shadows, so I will select a bit of our shadows with it. And then mess with this chroma slider to add however much to the shadows you want. In this case, I just want to add a little bit to bring this to a neutral tone. I like how that looks, and if we turn it off, you can see this gets us a little bit more punch and a little bit more clarity in the image. And as a last step on essentially every image, I'll add a little bit of local contrast. Though, in this case, this looks fine, but I will want to apply a crop. So I'll search for our crop tool, and then crop out our film border as well as anything else I might want to not have. And that's a final image. Rinse and repeat for whatever negatives you would like to do.